Thanks, Andrea. I'm Stephanie Lebend. I've been a consultant dietitian for 20 plus years now. And even though all of this information has been so good today, no lie, and even though I feel seasoned, I have learned a lot today too. And it would be fun just to see all of you and I think network even more. I am now currently serving as the nominating chair for the IDHCC, and that was completely out of my comfort zone. Stephanie Johnson reached out and got me involved, and I couldn't say no. So I kind of thought this would be really easy to find people to help, join the board or join our group. But then we didn't have our meeting last year due to COVID, so it's been a little bit tough. So if any of you would also like to jump out of your comfort zone and join us, that'd be wonderful. We would welcome you with open arms. And I think just with this meeting today, we've all learned a lot from each other, so it's really a great group. I am going to talk a little bit today. I always call this my my food safety sanitation evaluation. That's what I call it when I do it in my buildings. And we're just going to kind of get ready for survey with, just sanitation process. So here's my objectives. Obviously, we don't want a foodborne illness in our building, so we're going to just make sure that everything's up to sanitation standards. And then I think it's been attached to the handouts, but also it's in Kathleen's handouts, which are amazing. It's the Cms Kitchen Observation. Basically, this was, provided to us, and that is exactly what the state surveyors are looking at when they're coming into our buildings. So that way you can go through your facility and do a kitchen check and follow exactly what they're going to be looking at too. So anyways, so that's what we're going to be doing today. This is very, very, very informal, okay? We're going to take a tour. We're going to make sure that food's stored, prepared under sanitary conditions. Now, I am terrible with this. All of the F tags, 812 is usually going to probably be the one that I'm looking at a lot with sanitation. But please refer back to that kitchen pathway and you will find all the other F tag codes. I don't have them all memorized. I really, truly don't. So anyways, but just refer to that page. We want to make sure that our facility handles, prepares, and distributes food under the manner. Obviously, we just said this prevents the foodborne illness. So, all right, let's take a tour of the kitchen. So here we go, you guys. Now, Kathleen did the whole networking thing and talked about professional image. This might make mine go down the tubes by putting on my handy dandy hairnet, but we're taking a tour of the kitchen. And this is what I wear. So I'm kind of known as the hairnet police lady. When I see kitchen staff walk with just this beautiful flowing hair, I freak out. So anyways, I love my ginormous white bouffant because it covers all of my hair. And then, also now a lot of my kitchen staff has been wearing some really cute chef hats. There's like kind of maybe some surgeon hats too or something, but they're tucking in their long hair under these cute decorative little hats. So I don't care, as long as your hair is covered, whatever you wear, baseball caps, all of that goes. But I do see still, I call them the fishnet pantyhose like hairnets. And I have this gal who's a chef, and she has the most beautiful long hair, natural curly, thick hair. She'll put it up in a big old bun, stretches that little fishnet pantyhose hairnet on, and by the middle of her shift, it comes to the edge of her head, and it just will then wrap around her bun. And I'm like, I'm waiting for it to fling off and go into the pot of soup while, she's cooking, and, it'll become a physical contaminant at that point. So anyways, wear a hairnet, just cover your hair. That's what we're doing. Okay, so we're in our kitchen. The first thing I do, literally, I just kind of walk through the doorway. To me, I've been in enough kitchens by now that I always say I can see old dirt versus new dirt. So it's one of those things, you can see stuff that's been built up. You can see grease that's been stuck on things. Or you can just see crumbs that have been there from the food service, whatever shift you're working or you're observing. First thing I do when I go into the kitchen is I'm going to wash my hands. I feel like we have all been, well, we all know how to wash our hands before even COVID, but this has obviously become a huge thing since COVID. You're going to go to your hand washing sink, and you want to make sure that that hand washing sink is stocked with soap, with paper towels. I always look for signage just to make sure that it states that it's a hand washing sink. You don't want to see any food sitting in there. You don't want to see any pots and pans sitting in there. So anyways, it's just obviously designated for that purpose. Okay, so while I'm kind of just doing my whole observation, I'm just watching staff. So, you know, just making sure they're practicing, I guess, proper hygienic practices. So not touching, I have actually done this before. I've washed my hands, I'm all clean, and then like I'll touch my hairnet or I'll touch my shirt or something like that. Well, then you need to go wash your hands again. So just kind of basically not scratching stuff, whatever. So you just kind of keep your eyes peeled that your staff's practicing good techniques. Okay, let's touch on gloves. Oh, gloves. I have heard state refer to gloves as your magic hands. So you think you put gloves on and holy moly, you can do everything. You're clean, you got gloves on. So no, you can't. So gloves are single task only. So I love this picture of this gentleman frying eggs just kind of at the griddle. So that person is going to be doing that task, you know, at that time and hopefully not moving away from it. Well, okay, now I lied. He moved away. So he grabbed the door handle. He had to get some other stuff out. Now he's contaminated. He's waiting for more residents. He's touching his waist. Just all of that. Your gloves are dirty now. So you have to take them off. The picture at the bottom, I love. It's this lady preparing sandwiches. That's kind of a good practice. You gather up all your ingredients, get everything you need, and then you're staying at that task and you're doing, you know, that job and you don't leave it. And then you can take your gloves off and wash your hands. I had a lady, oh my gosh, she is the best kitchen staff worker I have worked with. She knows her stuff. She practices, she just knows. So anyways, state was in the building. State flusters everybody, right? You get nervous. So she was going to put some hamburgers out to thaw on a cookie sheet. She got all of her boxes out, the quantity that she thought she needed from the freezer. She washed her hands, put her gloves on. She's putting all the hamburgers out on the cookie sheet. The state surveyor is just standing there watching her, getting ready to write anything that she could write. And she was doing a great job. She ran out of hamburger patties, just totally kind of spaced out, ran to the freezer, got some more, came back and started putting them back out on the cookie sheet. That state surveyor just wrote it down immediately. She changed tasks. She went and grabbed the handle of the freezer, and so she wrote it down. But anyway, so just that's my kind of spiel on gloves. Then, well, here, I'll talk about them again a little bit. Ready to eat foods. Obviously, that is when I tell staff that they can wear gloves. I really don't want them to, though. So I always think of like hamburgers. When we have that on the menu, usually they'll have like all the buns sitting there. Sometimes they're still in the bag. Sometimes they'll put them out and put them in a big container so it's easier to grab. But if you're going to grab a bun without a utensil, you will wear a glove. But then that gloved hand cannot touch anything else on that serving line. So if you still wear that gloved hand and you're touching all the utensils for the rest of the meal, that glove's contaminated and you better not touch any more buns. So the best practice is just use a tongs like this picture demonstrates. So, and then down at the bottom right, it's also, you know, just kind of in the serving line, just as long as your staff washes their hands and they're just using that utensil and they're not, you know, changing tasks, they don't have to wear gloves while they're serving. Another thing too is when you're serving to your residents, I know I have had residents say, oh, you know, like they're dirty, like my staff's dirty because they weren't wearing gloves when they served them. Well, who knows where those hands have been with those gloves on. I would rather have them wash their hands and use proper serving techniques, you know, with bare hands. So anyways, okay, that's my 2 cents on gloves. Okay, so I'm going to keep going through my tour. So now I'm at my freezer cooler, and I'm going to walk in. And what I want to look at is it's usually, you know, kind of like right when you walk in, but they usually have spider racks of thawing food. So you just want to make sure that, and this picture here, they actually have a signage for the staff to know and look at and refer to, but you want to make sure that they are thawing foods or at least stacking them up appropriately per the internal cooking temperature. So you don't want to see a container of raw strawberries sitting under some ground beef, because that would be really bad. So anyway, so, refer to this picture. We want our ready to eat foods at the top. You might have some cured meats and stuff like that. So those might be in the middle a little bit, but otherwise this gives it kind of an appropriate order. And, you just want to make sure that everything's stored properly. So as I continue on in my cooler, I'm looking for, I can't say these words enough, label date, and label date. I just always, every time I'm in a building, that's all I say. So the picture on the left shows this beautiful bag of cheese that's been opened, obviously. It is sealed. It looks great. I was so excited. I reached in, I grabbed it, and looking all over it for a date, nothing, not a date on there. So anyway, so we obviously have to talk about that. The top right picture is another beautiful bag of cheese. This one had a date on it, super, super excited, but look at it. It was open. It wasn't taped back up or sealed. I have one building that is taking the mantra, bag it and tag it. And I got kind of excited about it. I mean, they are purchasing like extra Ziploc bags or different sizes of Ziploc bags, but anything that they open, they'll put in this Ziploc bag and they will date it and label it and put it back in their fridge. I love it. But anyways, so that's what I'm looking at too. So at least, cover it up, protect the quality of that food. I'm also looking at dates, making sure that they're following the 7-day rule. If it's outdated, that it's tossed out. I'm looking for foods that are maybe not in their original container, that at least they are being identified and I know what they are. I don't want to see staff's personal food in the fridge. There should be a designated spot for all of that. I'm looking for thermometers, and then in the refrigerator and in the freezer. And then I'm also going to be looking for making sure those temperatures are being documented. So usually the staff will do it right away in the beginning in the morning, and then they'll initial it that they've done it. So anyway, that's good. I look at racks. So like on this top picture with my sealed cheese, that rack is like this plastic. I have seen those before in certain buildings where I think it was maybe milk was stored on it, but it actually got a mold on those plastic racks. So, I just asked staff if they could clean those all off. You want to make sure that things aren't being stored or like lined with like paper, like the shelving isn't lined with paper, or that food isn't being stored in cookie sheets, that there's no air circulation in your refrigerator, because you want that air to circulate to keep everything cool. Going back to dates, so this bottom right picture just kind of shows some use by dates. If you have like a bistro or a little cafe and maybe your dining staff is preparing like some sandwiches or salads, making sure that those are dated with a use by date. And so that way, if you're doing like independent living or, somebody can come and purchase those, they know when it should be like used by. Okay, I have to share this personal thing with you guys. This was crazy. I've never had it happen before, and I don't know. I'm just going to chalk it up to COVID, but I got an email from one of my buildings, and they received in their shipment, it was like French salad dressing, little packets of French salad dressing. And on the box, it said, used by December 24th, 2020, and they got it in January. And they go, what do we do? Well, here they sent a letter from the manufacturer that stated, I wish I could remember all the verbiage, but anyways, they wrote this whole paragraph and they stated that this has been approved for an extended shelf life. So now our French dressing goes to March 24th or something, 2021. So I was like, holy moly, I've never had that before. So I don't know. I have a state surveyor, she's a retired state surveyor in one of my buildings. And so I asked her if it would be okay to do that. And she said, she goes, yeah. She goes, that letter would, I guess be suffice if state would come in and see that outdated date on that product. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah.
I had a question I thought might be good to address, and it's a question about receive date for all products. And are they required for all products? Certain products are not required at all. What do you see in your facilities with receive date?
Receive date. So like when stuff is, when they get stuff off the truck and they put it in storage, if they are taking it out of the container it came in, they are dating it. So, or, they are just, some had some really fancy stamps that they were stamping it on. It looked like a grocery store stamp. And then some just write it on with a marker. So I am seeing that. Yes.
One thing it's kind of hard is when you're using more than one company for food products, or even sometimes the same company. Sometimes they send you one shipment, and the previous shipment actually has a better date than the stuff that you just got in. So, I mean, honestly, reading those dates is important if you have someone who's really good at watching your storage area, because ultimately you want first in, first out with your product. So I've been finding that challenging, and probably even more challenging during COVID. I think everything's just a mess. So actually looking at what those receive dates too.
Yep, exactly right. Exactly right. So yeah, that's a great question for sure. And just keeping track of all that stuff too, just to protect yourself. Next, as I'm flowing through my kitchen, one kitchen in particular has like a prep area, and this is where they'll usually thaw stuff. So you just want to make sure that they're thawing meat properly. And the one building that I did go in had two beautiful pork loins sitting in a sink, in the prep sink, and there wasn't any water running. They were just sitting in there, and I go, no. So appropriate thawing, we have to have them, in running cold water. You can thaw them in the microwave, but if you do that, it's already probably starting the cooking process, and so you have to cook it right away. You can thaw in your cooler. It will take longer, so make sure you prepare for that. And then you can also thaw, with the cooking process too. So anyways, okay. So then now I'm kind of going to move my way into the cooks area. This is where I'm going to find temperatures. So I want to make sure that the food is being cooked properly and to the appropriate temperature. So I'm going to grab the log sheets, the temp log sheets. So what I'm looking for is all three meals. You have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I'm making sure that they're documenting all of the temperatures. So usually what I find are some holes, and it's the night shift. I hate to point a finger at the night shift, but it's them. And it's funny because I just had a meeting with one kitchen staff, and they go, oh, we know. And it's funny because these people, they do know, and they said, it's second habit. I am sticking a thermometer in all the food. I know what the temperatures are. They're fine. They said, but I forget to write them down. Well, I think we know in this business, it's always been kind of beat into us. It's like, if you don't document it, you didn't do it. So, it's one of those things. So I really encourage them. And oh my gosh, with Kathleen's presentation on litigation, it's, that documentation will protect you. And that's what I tell them. I go, if we were to have a foodborne illness outbreak, I said, they're immediately going to come to those temperatures and make sure we did the right thing. So I go, we're only protecting ourselves. So anyway, so you just make sure that the temps are getting logged. Okay, so I'm still in my cooks area. I open drawers. This drawer is so beautiful. I can't even handle it. Look how organized that is. It's just gorgeous. But I'm looking, sometimes I've seen like scoops that have pooling water in them with some crumbs or gunk in there, and that's not good. You don't want to see that. I look at the lips of drawers. That's where I say I know old dirt versus new dirt. You can tell when that stuff's been built up for a while and has not been scrubbed off. Same with like kitchen countertops, there's usually like a shelf in the kitchen, prep line. And so anyways, all of that wiped off. Let's talk about hoods here for just a minute. So I have these beautiful hoods that just got professionally cleaned. So I quick snapped some photos of them. They do get professionally cleaned, and you want to there's some stickers that usually identify when that'll happen. But these racks here in the middle, and those the staff can take out and they can clean them on their own. I do have a building that still uses a fryer, and it's gross. I mean, the professionals will come in and clean it, and it'll be 1 week later and it'll be gunky. So they stay on top of it and clean it. Okay, this might be just my own pet peeve. I don't know if it's ever been written up by state or not, but I just get bugged by it. These little anvils that hang over the cooktop area, you know, like your burners, your griddle, whatever. But they get little fuzzies built up on them. And I'm just like, I go, that could be a physical contaminant. I said, they're just dangling off there and you have this pot of boiling soup underneath it. Anyways, that could be me being picky, but I note it. So anyway, okay. So this could be in your kitchen, in the cook's area still. I've had some fans in the cook's area and I've had fans in the dish room, but then there's also a picture of the fan here that's in the freezer or cooler. But you want to make sure there's no buildup of ice or anything. You want to make sure those fans are circulating and you're getting all that proper air in there. The fans in the dish machine or in the cook's area. Again, this is my technical term for the buildup, and it's fuzzies. They're just gross. I don't know what else to say, but they start blowing those fans and all those little fuzzies like come out of the fan, you know, blades, and oh dear. I don't know. I love the term physical contaminant, and so I get all excited about them. Anyways, okay, I'm still in my cook's area. Sorry, I haven't moved. There's a lot of equipment. So, okay, I have the oven. They have the drip pans. So many of them line them with foil, and that's beautiful. And so I'll just kind of check that. There again, you can, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, but old dirt versus new dirt, you know when they haven't been changed for a long time because there's some really gross buildup. I have another building, they line the bottom of their ovens with foil and they look beautiful. And so they're just always clean. There's a toaster here, a picture of a toaster, and those, you know, there's a top rack that you can pull out of the toaster and that catches all the crumbs too. I don't know why, but sometimes that gets forgotten to change or, you know, clean out. The toaster will look beautiful and then you'll pull out that top rack and the staff will go, oh shoot, I forgot that, you know, so it's full of crumbs. Anyways, the toaster. Okay, mixers. I've had a state surveyor. I can't remember if the building got a tag on it or we just got kind of a warning. I can't remember, but it sticks in my head because the mixer was picked on and now I hone in on a mixer. But anyways, so you have your beautiful ginormous mixer, and this could happen in little ones too, but so where the stem comes down and you look up underneath there. And so underneath there was like some frosting or cake batter, whatever it was, but the surveyor just went, and she scratched it off. And she goes, that's a sanitation violation. And we're just like, oh, it's just minuscule, but yet, anyway, it could have been wiped off. So now I look at mixers really, really well. Tilt skillets, some places have tilt skillets, some places have a flat griddle top. I just look to make sure there's no buildup of carbon, or you can tell when they've been cleaned off. Okay, my favorite, and honestly, I bet this is the easiest sanitation tag ever, is the microwave. You open up that microwave door, if there's a splatter in there, and I know surveyors, I think, will be considerate if you were just cooking lunch and your soup exploded, but you know if it was maybe 3 days ago soup or whatever. So anyways, microwaves. Let me see, slicers. Some places still use slicers. And so you just make sure they're clean, sanitized. Can openers. So you have your can opener that's, you know, stuck on the side shelf or countertop, and you want to just look at the blade, make sure there's nothing built up on that blade. And then even too, where it's mounted, there's that silver mounting piece, and just make sure there's no gunk all around that. I'm using really technical terms here today. Gunk, fuzzies, you know, I don't know. Sorry, you guys. That's just what I call it. Anyways, okay. So kind of still in the cook's area, pans. I just check pans. I'll just kind of randomly pick a few. Pans cannot be put away wet. So I'm always just making sure that they're, you know, dry. The Roboku blender, making sure the blades are clean, wiped out. There again, it's kind of like the mixer. If there's stuff that can be scratched off, it potentially could be, you know, a sanitation violation. Cutting boards, making sure those are clean and sanitized. We don't want to cross-contaminate with our cutting boards. ice machines. Ooh, the ice machines. This could get us in trouble very easily, and sometimes you don't even think about it. But the ice machines that are pretty much the standalone ice machine where you lift up the black lid, if you get down low, you can peer up underneath there, and there's this like white plastic molding, and sometimes there's black mold that'll build up on there, pink mold that'll build up on there. But usually maintenance will help take care of that. But I'll always tell like my kitchen staff, you know, just keep your eyeballs on the ice machine. And then scoops, we don't want scoops in there. Okay, Andrea kind of touched on this really well. The storeroom, FIFO, first in, first out. We want everything to be organized, look good. Usually when the staff's putting the stock away, they'll check to make sure that, you know, the product is, you know, no dents. We don't want to have anything damaged that we're putting it away. And then we've already kind of said this too, labeling, dating it if it's not in its original package. I see this a lot with like snacks or maybe even like chocolate chips. They, you know, they're almost out, and so they'll put them in a Ziploc bag and then they'll label them and date them and stuff. The big thing here in the storeroom, and this goes back to the freezer and in the coolers too. Remember the top, it's like the 18 inches from the top and then 6 feet, could you imagine? 6 inches off the floor. So we don't want to store anything on the floor. Obviously, we're trying to keep pests out of our kitchen. We don't want to attract them or give them some easy food to chew on. So 6 inches off the floor. I've seen milk cartons used before, you know, just whatever, but get it off the floor. So. Okay, now we're going to head over to the dish room. So dish rooms can look differently anywhere you go. I've had smaller buildings, so they don't maybe even have a 3-compartment sink. But if you do have a 3-compartment sink, you want to make sure that it's utilized properly. And that's where the front of it, or the first one is your soapy water, your middle is your rinse, and the last one's your sanitizer. So you want to make sure that they're, I guess, using the sanitizer properly. So whatever your building uses, making sure that they know. I've had this before where state surveyor was watching our dishwasher in the back, and the gal took a cookie sheet and dumped it into the sanitizer at the end and just quick put it out to air dry. And the surveyor wrote it all down and then ended up, she didn't stick it in there long enough. We had, I guess the sanitizer we were using, it needed 15 seconds to soak. And obviously it wasn't 15 seconds. So anyways, this is a little picture here of some test strips. Now this might not be the same test strip you would use for the sanitizer for your 3-compartment sink, but just make sure that you have test strips that you know, and your Ecolab or whomever you get your chemicals from will set you up with this. At one of my buildings, I was super excited. She showed me they just got a brand new chemical, a sanitizer for their 3-compartment sink that Ecolab told them kills COVID. So I don't know if it's a new product that's out there or all of them did that, but maybe they're advertising it as it kills COVID or what. But anyways, but they did get new test strips. So now they're in a tube and they changed it cool, new, bright green. So anyways, here's my little, I feel like so many kitchen sanitation checks, but I learned something new, I swear, every time, or I learned from my CDM, I learned from those state surveyors, but I'm always willing to listen and just, you know, get new tips. Well, I didn't even realize, and maybe this is dumb on me, but these little test strips expire. So we had some that were like 2 years old, and it was like this brand that's shown in the picture here. So anyway, so now that's my big thing. I go around and I'm checking everybody's test strips for expiration dates. So some people knew it and some people didn't. So anyway, that's my little plug on test strips. Okay, dish machines. There again, dish machines can, you know, vary between your buildings. Some places have a high temp dish machine. And so you want to, the biggest takeaway from this is making sure whatever you have, you are documenting either the temperatures, you're documenting the sanitizer is at appropriate level, and you're checking that daily, and you're keeping these keeping a log of all of this. So there's sanitizer dish machines, there's low temp dish machines. This is a picture of another big ginormous dish machine, and my other big thing with in just dish area in general that I look at is I'm watching my staff back there. And this is where another hand washing sink comes into play. But you're going from the dirty end to the clean end and making sure you wash your hands in between, because I'm telling you that doesn't happen all the time. Or you're wearing those beautiful gloves that you're clean because you're wearing gloves, but you're really not. So anyways, just making sure that there's that dish machine or hand washing sink close by. And then I also look, when I'm in the dish area, I look for lime buildup. I just kind of try to get on my tippy toes and look on tops of the dish machine for lime buildup. You can look inside of it. You can look on the walls. All that stainless steel is just beautiful, and it can usually shine if the staff is keeping it clean. So anyways, just kind of keeping my eyeballs close, like on that too. Okay, obviously we know that our dishes have to be air dried. So this is a beautiful drying rack that not probably all the facilities have. That's a lot of space. And I have one building that it's an itty bitty little tiny space that they have to dry their dishes on. So you utilize whatever you have, but things have to be air dried. I had a state surveyor tell me once that she went into a building, and it was like, I feel like a kind of a small mom and pop, nursing home. And, she said, you could have ate off the floor in this kitchen because it just reminded me of my grandma, to be honest. These ladies that were running this kitchen, and it was cleaner than clean, but they all walked around with tea towels over their shoulders because that's how they dried their dishes. That's what they did. And she goes, no, you cannot use a towel. I mean, that's potential for cross-contamination, but that's what they did. That's just, anyway, they wouldn't listen. They would take the tag every single year and would not change their ways. But she goes, this kitchen was so clean. So anyway, keep the dish racks off the floor. Here again, we know everything needs to be off the floor. Okay, so we have our buckets, and sometimes when I ask staff, I'm like, do you have a red bucket? They'll be like, what? And we have a green bucket and a red bucket. The green bucket is our soapy water, and our red bucket is our sanitizer. So we use that to obviously sanitize our equipment, sanitize the tops of our countertops, whatever, and then it needs to be air dried. My takeaway for this is to make sure those rags or towels, whatever they're utilizing, are kept in those buckets. I see so often, the cook's countertops will be just scattered with rags. And I'm like, why aren't they in their buckets? Obviously that's not doing them any good when they're not sitting in there. So, and then here again, this is where we need to make sure that the sanitizer solution is at an appropriate level. So making sure that the staff does check the sanitizer levels in the red bucket. And then you have documentation for that too. And then we need to have a proper place for those dirty rags to go. So as long as staff knows where they go, then that's fine. You just don't want them laying on the floor or, in a corner or something somewhere. That would be gross. The chemical bottles, we have to make sure that they're labeled. And we want to make sure too that we have information on any chemical that we're using in the building. We want to make sure that all of this stuff is obviously proper chemicals that we can use in our kitchen. We don't want to just bring anything from, whatever Target that we just thought smelled good or something. So anyway, we have to make sure that it's appropriate for the kitchen. Sometimes, and I kind of forget sometimes when I'm doing my little kitchen check, we have the fire extinguishers. Obviously, we don't want to block those, so we want them, to be accessible for us in case there's a fire. But I will sometimes just go check the tags just to see if they've, been checked, or, the fire marshal has looked at them too. So sometimes I do it and sometimes I don't. But anyway, just make sure that, I guess they're available too. Okay, Andrea's going to touch on this a little bit more, but competencies. So I've seen this a little bit more too with state surveys, that if you, maybe they see something in your kitchen and it just wasn't right, they're going to come talk to your staff, and they're going to make sure that your staff knows the proper procedures on how to maybe do something in the dish machine, or maybe it was something in the cooler, something like that. but they do like these competency checks just to make sure that the staff's aware. So Andrea's going to touch on this last one a little bit more. If the staff knows the symptoms of the contagious illnesses that we, obviously if we would have, we can't come to work. So I'm going to turn it over to her right now.
Thanks, Stephanie. We were having fun while you were talking, and we were listing some of our pet peeves in the kitchen when we do a sanitation check. So you'll have to read through them. Some are pretty good. So we all have them. I don't know. I am known for, if I pick up one dirty rag, their eyes get big and they know that Andrea is on a mission about dirty rags, because dirty rags are not allowed. And when they start, moving around, I'm like, I'm sorry, I just used that. I'm like, it wasn't the bucket. So maybe we could get to some of those, because that's kind of fun. But for competencies, there actually is an F tag, F801, and it is required to make sure that as the leader, we're responsible to make sure that our the people in your charge have adequate competencies to do the job that they are performing. And so it's just amazing how much we do expect of a food service worker to know in the kitchen. And so it's not something that we just learn in orientation and that we're done. It's an ongoing process. And so anyway, this was a topic I thought I'd make sure that I brought up, and this is from the food code, 2-103.11, the person in charge. The food code is linked on Kathy Nider's handout. It's the fourth bullet down on her resources for the consultant dietitian under food safety. And the very first link there is to the food code 2017. So if you have that handout, if you want to write down a couple of page numbers to look up later, you can. That is a very long document. So on page 29, it lists what the responsibilities are for the person in charge. So for the dietary manager, and if you're a consultant dietitian, that's part of your job, is to help guide them. And it lists, the responsibilities of education. But it also, in there on page 31, it states that food employees are informed in a verifiable manner of their responsibility to report to the person in charge information about their health or activities as they relate to diseases that are transmissible through food. And so, and then the very next section in the food code 2-2 is employee health, and then it lists the reportable symptoms. That handout there is really hard to read on that screen, but it does list any onset of the following symptoms, either while at work or outside of work, including on the date of onset. You need to let your employer know before you come to work. And those are diarrhea, vomiting, jaundice, sore throat with fever, infected cuts or wounds. And so this sheet that I'm showing on the screen is not a required form, but it would be a great way in a verifiable manner to show that you have provided education. This form, you can Google Form 1B, or you can go into the Food Code 2017, and it's on page 705. And so I prefer to have include this in orientation and let them know that if you have these symptoms, you can't come to work. And then also below it says there's certain medical diagnoses or reportable diseases, and those are the big 6 pathogens, and those are also listed on here. And so I would never want someone to have to memorize these, especially if you're asked by a surveyor, but there's a question on the pathway, and it says they would need to know what they need to report. And I have this next poster here hanging in our food service department.
Wait, this one?
Yeah, perfect. And this, it actually originated from a surveyor during an assisted living, and then it was a nice algorithm and let you know that it is your job to report employee illness. And I find this to be a helpful chart for both the supervisors who are in charge and also from the employee as a reference. And so, and then from here, then I actually adopted it to some other specific requirements that we have at the Iowa Veterans Home. Back up one real quick, Stephanie, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I'll tell you when. I let her take the remote here. So if you have any symptoms of a sore throat or fever, vomiting, diarrhea, or jaundice, yes, then it goes to that pink box and it gives them further guidance on what to do. Or if they have been confirmed with a diagnosis of one of the big six, then there's an arrow and it tells you what to do with work, so forth. So also on the sheet on the very bottom, I added the big six. So that way, if they're ever asked, questioned about what those foodborne pathogens are, that they have a reference to go. So here's a little story about competencies. I feel pretty good because when we have a new staff member, we always go through this, and every once a year in January, I revisit this and I show them the poster and I have them re-sign Form 1B so we are all on the same page. And then I went around and did an audit, and I cannot believe how many people could not remember this, even though it's done every single year. So I think something good to remember about competencies is just because one time we provide education to our staff, that doesn't mean that they retain that or remember. And so some people are more visual learners, some people need to be, to hear it, and then sometimes it just kind of goes in one ear and out in the other until maybe something happens and then it sticks with them. And so now the next slide, Stephanie, after I still struggle with that, at one point, I look at that picture of me, but we have badges at work, and so we actually made a badge, and on the flip side of the picture there, and it was a badge that actually has the big six pathogens listed, and what the big six symptoms are, what those symptoms are that they would need to report. And so, and then on the bottom it says, reminder, you must wait 24 hours before returning to work after your last symptom of illness. And so now they have it on their badge and they have it hanging on our bulletin board, and we sign the Form 1B when anyone starts that work, and then once a year in January. We hope we have it covered, but I just think it, sometimes it's a learning lesson, or it's kind of, it can be defeating sometimes when you feel like you've done your job and you've presented good information at an in-service and they all should know, but really it is just a lifelong learning process, and we learn from our mistakes. And so anyway, it's a story to share. So we have some extra time here for questioning. Does anybody want to share or have a question first? We'll start with that for Stephanie. And you can type it in, or if you feel more comfortable, you can just unmute yourself too and share. So while they're thinking here, if you have any questions, some of the pet peeves that they've had that I've enjoyed was employ food and drinks in inappropriate places.
Oh, yes.
Or uncovered chemicals stored in inappropriate places. Sometimes when they forget to write the chemical name when they move it into a different bottle too.
Right.
And moving around. Employ food in the refrigerator, and that could be like on a kitchen area where the residents should have access to it, but the staff food is in there. Undated open items. Build up around the floor baseboards. That's excellent. That's survey ready when you're looking at your baseboards. That's good.
Yeah, for sure.
Non-dietary staff coming into the kitchen area. Without gloves and no hairnet. Oh, the hairnet
gets me every time.
I thought nurses had special rules, so they didn't have to do that. So everyone in your kitchen, you're right, needs to make sure they have a hairnet on. And wash your hands upon entering the kitchen. Dusty surfaces, top of fridges, and ceiling fans. That's really good when you're looking at all that, your fans, the danglies.
I know. I don't have a proper name for them.
And then soap or paper towels that are out of the hand washing sink.
Oh, and I just had my kitchen staff tell me, they go, we're at the mercy of the housekeepers to keep that stocked. And so I said, that is that is kind of a problem, because I'm always washing my hands and then I'm standing there, ready for a paper towel. So I don't know what the answer is to that. I don't know, because I guess when you're at the mercy of housekeeping.
It's a team effort, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Dishes stuck together. I always think of wet dishes that,
Yes.
in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's always good practice when you're doing a walkthrough is to check some pans and see if there's any, if you're wet. I like to swipe my hands across a couple of them to see if they are stacking them before they're completely dry. Because if they do that, they're never going to dry. And that's a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I got any more. Temperatures not being done. Hold is a pet peeve. And I like the phrase, you can't expect what you don't inspect. So, I think it's hard sometimes, and as a consultant dietitian, or even if you are a dietary manager of some in the kitchen, you get so busy with your everyday, like to take a time out and to do an inspection can be challenging. So it's good, have some separate time set aside for that. I think it's good as a consultant dietitian to really help with that. Because if you can help keep your dietary manager out, sometimes on the toes too, and make sure that you're looking at those temperatures. That help. I think it's a nice circle, just making sure we're all inspecting and expecting certain standards.
I usually do. I go in every month. I mean, I go in. I try to do a kitchen check every single month, and some buildings have asked me to do them more often, and I think that just depends too on state. Like if we're getting ready for state, which makes it sad because we should be ready for state anytime, but you know how it goes. Anyways, but usually I do go in every month, and I'm always telling them, I'm like, yes, I'm writing up this piece of paper, but I'm your friend. Like I'm here to help you and clean it up before before state comes in. So yeah, I don't know.
That too, I think especially too when you're watching like the puree process.
Yeah.
You get very nervous, and I'm like, we are all on the same team here, and it's so good to get that nervous jittery out while I'm watching you, and we're all on the same team. Versus me sweating when I'm watching something not go right during a survey, and I can't say anything at that point.
Exactly right.
I have a question about sandwiches. And I actually have a funny story for this one, but the question was, are gloves required when making sandwiches, for instance? Of course, you have to clean your hands. So one of the first in-services I did at our veterans home was I partnered up with one of our assistant food service directors. And for the in-service, I said, okay, we were going to get ready to make sandwiches as the nourishment staff. And I said, let's have a competition and see who's faster. I said, well, so we both washed our hands, but I said I was gonna, or my partner here, he was gonna make a sandwich and put gloves on after he washed his hands, and I was gonna make a sandwich, a peanut butter sandwich without wearing gloves. And so we said, mark, get set, go. And so we had a power. So we washed our hands up and we dried them. And then what happens when your hands are wet? They're hard to get the gloves on.
Oh, yeah.
He was struggling to get the gloves on his hands. And meanwhile, I had my utensils and opened up the peanut butter packet and proceeded to make the whole sandwich without touching anything ready to eat.
Yes.
While he was just getting started and I was done. So, and the point to my story is sometimes staff do think they always have to wear gloves.
No.
But it's much better if they don't and they think through the process, and you can do so much with the tongs.
Oh.
Even in my case, I think I just had a fork and a knife.
Yes. I go, we have to be the most creative people with utensils because we can get that bread buttered. And I did have a CDM. I love them. I call them my donut wrappers, but it's just a deli wrap, whatever papers, but she uses those for toast now. That's been a great asset too. So, but whatever you can use to not use those bare hands. Yeah.
Here's a difficult one. What about grilled cheese or Reubens when they are preparing them? Reubens are tough. There is so much. We actually, I don't know if that picture, that cook, I think that actually might have been a Reuben day. Maybe I'm wrong. But I don't know. I think you would really have to look at that process, but I think it would be hard not to. But as long as they're stationed there and they're continuing to do that one task.
Yes.
You know, if you have your cheese shingled and you have your sauerkraut right there by your griddle, I think I don't know. I think it would probably be easier to wear gloves, but continue to do one task and not leave it.
Yep.
And if you
exactly.
need anything, you holler out. I think Rubens would be very hard to make on your own. So don't, struggle with those, but I think you need to be able to holler out and say, I need more cheese, I need more bread open, and have assistance with that, and then they can keep their gloves on and keep working. That's my thought.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Be washing your hands a lot.
I just have a quick comment. There was something brought up about what it was like hand washing sink, and sometimes the soap and or paper towels run out. They say that's a consistent problem. Have you brainstormed that with the employees or their supervisors to say, why is that happening? Because it seemed like there's lots of angles you could address it. I mean, for say, I don't know if this would work, but what if, does the schedule need to change for how often housekeeping comes in? Are they coming in? Are they missing that sink? How often are they already doing it? And is there a place, I don't know, sometimes the devices have like a little key to lock and unlock to be able to put the new thing in. Is there a place to put an extra thing of paper towels, an extra soap with the key, like in a little tub or something, wherever? And then if you do run out occasionally, then you've got something right there to do that, And it's like, what would they allow? Powers that be. I mean, if you don't have a place to even put that, I guess I think of that because not that I have experience in that particular kitchen. I work as a caregiver for seniors, and every house has issues. It's common thing. Like you say, you run out of the soap or the paper towels or whatever, and to know where you can get something extra. And it's like, can you put it at the point of usage, that extra backup? Or if there's not room, is there someplace close by that you might find it, like a hallway closet or whatever?
Kathy, that's excellent. And I think what you're saying is basically root cause analysis is finding out why. Why are we running out? Because if that's happening often in a facility, you could get tagged, especially when you're, if they would find it empty and then someone makes a little comment on the side, well, it happens all the time, you're in trouble.
And it's like, why wait? I mean, it's like, we want good things for our employees. We want good, we want it safe and healthy for everyone that lives here. And it's like, why wait? It's not the point that, we got this one too many demerits and now we're in trouble. It's like, you're going to be in big trouble if somebody's getting sick because you weren't able to, you went there, you did the right thing to wash your hands because you're changing tasks. You got there and you don't have the way to do the thing that you need to do.
Cool, thank you, definitely. And there's just times where it would be nice, sometimes they are going to run out, but having a process in place so you take care of that. There's a question too, I'm going to back up about the types of sexual abuse. Is this something that all kitchen staff should be aware of, or just managers? And that's something I've been working on too, with being quality management director now. But it should be dietary staff as well, kitchen staff as well as the nursing staff. The surveyor can ask whoever they want those questions, and we should all know those answers. Just getting back into survey readiness every week. Part of my job is to send out questions on fire safety and looking at abuse questions, and I try to change them up, and then the supervisors can go around and ask those questions. But I'm in a very large facility, but definitely should be asking them, can you name forms of abuse? What is sexual degradation? So asking them those questions and so they get comfortable asking or answering those for a surveyor. And also, what would you do if you saw something happen, uncomfortable, what are you supposed to do? And making sure that they know that they would want to make sure that the resident is safe, and then inform your supervisor. But absolutely, those are definitely important questions to be asking. And that's what I like about those pathways. You wouldn't find that in the kitchen pathway, but it's good to look through the other pathways and see what questions that a surveyor can ask staff members, but definitely fire safety. And also another question lately with our infection control audits because of COVID. Surveyors have been asking staff if they know the contact time or the dwell time of disinfectants or sanitizers in the building. And so do they know that your sanitizer, you know, how long does it have to, how long does it have to, that surface have to be wet for it to actually disinfect? You know, so whether it's a minute, 3 minutes, that they should know that answer. And we actually have another badge that we wear at the Veterans Home behind our name tag, and we actually have all of our chemicals listed, what they look like, and what their contact times are. And surveyors are asking those questions. And we got some questions here. I'm sorry, I was asking how. Let's see. Oh, one that was just about housekeeping won't get the deficiency for the paper towels. The responsibility is the dietary department. Therefore, dietary would have the products available and are responsible to stock and replace.
That's so good. I was going to mention too at the beginning, and I'm sorry I didn't say it. There is like a dining observation pathway too, and I think obviously that's all been provided by Kathleen. But just take a look at that, because I feel that could be a whole nother conversation we could be having. You know, just observing what's going on in the dining room. One thing that I did have a comment on was our cups. We had some glass cups that we were using, and they were sitting drying. They were upside down, but they were drying, and the sunlight hit them a certain way. And one of the nurses walked by and she goes, Stephanie, she's like, look how scratched up these cups are. And it was just from our staff, like scrubbing the inside of the cup and then washing them. And anyway, we got new cups because they just said that was, they looked tacky. They maybe, you know, even the sanitary or the sanitization effect of it. So anyways, but just keep your eyeballs on that too, with the dining observation.
Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, definitely. Always be looking at your, making sure there's no pits. And,
yes.
Looking, make sure that your plasticware isn't all scratched up, or you're losing the glaze on your plates. It's always good to give the administrator a warning, not say we need plates now, but say, hey, these are starting to look, like they're showing somewhere. This might be something in the future you might want to look at for purchase. So even sometimes there's only so much control you have as the consultant dietitian, but you would much rather have it said than not say anything at all and have them get cited. So while you can't always control it, you'd want to be the one that, gives them a little nudge of things to be looking at.